A shocking incident is unfolding in Sydney, Australia, and Pyongyang, simultaneously shaking the Korean Central Television. The 78-year-old veteran announcer, who has read the language of the North Korean regime for 50 years. Her 34-year-old youngest son, who was studying abroad in Russia, has arrived at the Australian refugee screening station via South America. The mother's news, which used to boast a broadcast time of 3 minutes, has been cut down to 28 seconds since a certain day, and the son's 7-day return order has changed to a 72-hour ultimatum. The scene of the son, who grew up as a hostage and a symbol of power, betraying the regime to save each other, is being broadcasted worldwide via satellite waves. However, the shocking fact is that the final key that made this 18-day defection operation possible was the 28-second live broadcast from the Pyongyang studio. Will you join me in watching until the end to see what conclusion the mother's final 28 seconds and the son's miraculous escape will bring? We'll start now. Before that, if you subscribe and hit the like button once, you can find new moving stories every day. And please let me know in the comments which region you are listening to this story from. Now, let's start the story. I am Choi Jin-guk. He was a 34-year-old ordinary North Korean youth studying in Vladivostok, Russia. But my mother was not ordinary. Choi Myung-hwa, the flagship female announcer of the Korean Central Television. She was the voice of the nation, serving 3 generations from Chairman Kim Il-sung to Chairman Kim Jong-un for over 50 years in North Korea. My mother joined the Korean Central Television in 1970 at the age of 21. She was a legendary figure, praised by Chairman Kim Il-sung himself for her beautiful voice. During the era of National Defense Commission Chairman Kim Jong-il, she served as a key announcer, delivering even top-secret state secrets. And after Chairman Kim Jong-un took power, she continued to be in charge of the main news. Every night at 11 p.m., it was my routine to check my mother's broadcast. Even in Russia, you could watch North Korean broadcasts. I accessed the North Korean website from my small laptop in the Vladivostok University dormitory and watched the Korean Central Television. My mother always appeared on screen for more than 3 minutes, reading the main news, reporting on Chairman Kim Jong-un's activities, covering economic news, and even giving a final greeting. Sometimes she would appear for 5 or 6 minutes. In North Korea, having that much screen time meant immense power and trust. But something strange happened starting from the first week of October 2023. On Monday, October 2nd, my mother's screen time suddenly decreased to 1 minute and 40 seconds. At first, I thought it was just a change in the broadcast schedule. If the news about Chairman Kim Jong-un's activities was longer, other segments could be shortened. But on Tuesday, it decreased to 1 minute and 10 seconds, and on Wednesday to 48 seconds. On Thursday, she only appeared for 28 seconds. In North Korea, screen time is power. The person who appears the longest after Chairman Kim Jong-un is considered the de facto leader. Even the ranking of the Central Committee members is determined by their screen time. If they appear for more than 3 minutes, they are considered a core member, and if less than 1 minute, they are treated as a regular member. For an announcer like my mother, who had been in charge of the main news for a long time, suddenly decreasing to 28 seconds was not a simple schedule change. It was a signal that something big was happening. That night, I broke out in a cold sweat and looked closely at my mother's face. Her expression during those 28 seconds was completely different from usual. My mother was always confident in front of the camera. She had the stability of a 50-year veteran. Her voice was clear and her gaze unwavering. She had the dignity of someone who had directly served Chairman Kim Il-sung and National Defense Commission Chairman Kim Jong-il. But that day, my mother was different. Her eyes were trembling, and there was a slight tremor in her usually firm voice. I even saw her gaze waver for a moment while reading the news script. It was impossible for a 50-year veteran announcer to do that. What was even stranger was her makeup. She had applied heavier makeup than usual, as if trying to hide something. I had an ominous thought that she might be trying to cover up bruises or wounds. I couldn't sleep that night. I had a gut feeling that something big was happening. The next morning, I searched all the overseas news sites related to North Korea. Radio Free Asia, Daily NK, NK News. I wondered if there had been any changes inside North Korea. For the past few days, there had been rumors of unusual movements within the North Korean propaganda department. There were also talks about Chairman Kim Jong-un ordering media innovation, and rumors of a leadership reshuffle. At that moment, I realized my mother's 28 seconds were a danger signal sent to me. In North Korea, when a high-ranking family member is purged, their children abroad are called back first, to eliminate evidence and deal with the entire family. I had seen such cases several times in Russia. When a high-ranking official in Pyongyang was purged, their children studying abroad in China or Russia were suddenly summoned and then went missing. I felt a chill run down my spine. I thought my mother's 28 seconds were her final warning to me. My hunch was correct. 3 days later, on Saturday, October 7th in the morning, I received a sudden call from the North Korean consulate in Vladivostok, Russia. Comrade Choi Jin-guk, you have been ordered to return to Pyongyang immediately. The moment I received the call, my whole body froze. There are only two reasons why a sudden return order is given to students abroad. Either there is a big celebration at home or a big disaster. If it were a celebration, they would have contacted me in advance, and calling me suddenly like this meant there was a disaster. I tried to steady my trembling hands as I replied, "Can you tell me what's going on?" "You'll find out when you get here. Come to the consulate at 10 a.m. tomorrow." The call ended. Usually, the consulate staff maintained some level of courtesy, but this time it was a complete order. I immediately headed to the consulate. It took 40 minutes by bus from downtown Vladivostok to the consulate. On the way, all kinds of thoughts raced through my mind. What happened to my mother? Or did I do something wrong? When I arrived at the consulate, instead of the usual Consul Kim Cheol-soo, a man I had never seen before greeted me. He was a tall man in his mid-40s with a cold face. "I am Ri Gyong-chul. I was newly dispatched from Pyongyang." Ri Gyong-chul's eyes swept over me sharply. It was a gaze that looked at me as if I were a criminal. It was completely different from the gentle expression that North Korean officials usually show when dealing with overseas compatriots. When I entered the screening room, Ri Gyong-chul told me to sit in a chair. Then he unfolded the documents and said coldly, "Your mother's health is not good. You need to come back soon." But it was strange. If my mother was sick, why wasn't Ri Gyong-chul smiling? Usually, North Korean officials make a gentle expression and speak warmly, saying things like, "Your family is waiting for you," when talking about family. But Ri Gyong-chul was completely businesslike. It felt like a security officer arresting a criminal. "How can I know specifically how my mother is sick?" "You'll find out when you come back. What's important now is to return quickly." Ri Gyong-chul took something out of the documents. It was a plane ticket. The Koryo Airlines flight to Pyongyang at 2 p.m. on Tuesday, the day after tomorrow. Hand over your passport before that. At this point, I felt completely strange. The demand for passport submission. Previously, when other students studying abroad returned home, their passports were not taken away. It was usually the case that they took it with them and submitted it at Pyongyang Airport. But why were they trying to take away my passport in advance? "Why do you have to take my passport in advance?" "I'm going to take care of your return procedures. So why are you talking so much?" Ri Gyong-chul's voice was mixed with irritation. Usually, North Korean officials are kind to overseas compatriots, but this man was completely different. I had no choice but to hand over my passport. I felt that if I refused, I would be suspected even more. "Come to the consulate by 10 a.m. on Tuesday and finish your departure preparations." "Yes, I understand." On the way out of the consulate, my legs were shaking. I felt like I had fallen into a trap. While waiting at the bus stop, I checked the local Russian news. I wondered if there was any news related to North Korea. and I found a shocking article. Large-scale replacement of North Korean propaganda department officials. Kim Jong-un orders major reform of media sector. Rumors of replacement of chief announcer of Korean Central Television. My hands shook while reading the article. I felt like I knew exactly why my mother's screen time had been reduced to 28 seconds. Chairman Kim Jong-un was drastically reforming the propaganda department and trying to replace all existing personnel like my mother. Even a veteran announcer with 50 years of experience was no exception. There was more specific content in the article. Chairman Kim Jong-un recently emphasized media innovation to match the new era at a meeting of the party's propaganda department. He criticized the old way of thinking of existing officials and ordered them to be replaced with young and loyal talents. This was clearly a content that foreshadowed a purge. Chairman Kim Jong-un's criticism of the old way of thinking meant that he was going to remove existing officials. That night, when I returned to the dormitory, I searched the internet for more information. I tried to find out the recent trends by searching North Korean specialty sites. There were analyses that there had been subtle changes in North Korea's Korean Central Television for the past few days. The screen time of existing announcers was reduced, and new faces began to appear. In particular, there was an analysis that veteran announcers like my mother were being targeted. It was said that Chairman Kim Jong-un was trying to build his own media system while sorting out the legacy of the Kim Il-sung Kim Jong-il era. I couldn't sleep that night. I gradually realized that both my mother and I were in danger. 3 days later, on the morning of October 10th, Tuesday, I received another call from Ri Kyung-chol. Comrade Choi Jin-guk, the plan has changed. Finish your departure preparations within 72 hours. I can't wait any longer. The return deadline, which was 7 days, was suddenly reduced to 72 hours. This was a complete ultimatum. Can I know what's going on? Why is it so urgent? Don't ask, and just follow. Your mother's condition is very serious. The phone call was cut off. I sat alone in my dormitory room, lost in thought. 72 hours meant until Friday. It meant that they wouldn't let the weekend pass. This was clearly not a normal family emergency. It was for some political reason that they were urgently calling me back. That night, I secretly watched my mother's broadcast video again on my cell phone. I downloaded all the clips from the past week and analyzed them in detail. I watched the 28-second clip dozens of times and observed my mother's expression frame by frame. October 2nd, broadcast. My mother's gaze dropped downward for a moment while reading the news. It was possible that she remembered something that was not in the manuscript, or that she saw someone's signal. October 4th, broadcast. There was a slight tremor in my mother's usually confident voice. It was especially so when she read news related to Chairman Kim Jong-un. October 6th, broadcast. She stumbled over her words once while reading the news. She was supposed to say, "the great leader," but she only said, "the great," and paused for a moment before starting again. It was impossible for a veteran announcer with 50 years of experience to do that. Upon closer inspection, I found other strange things. The studio background behind my mother was different from usual. The portraits of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il looked bigger than usual. It was possible that the camera angle was adjusted or that the studio structure was changed. And the face of the assistant standing next to my mother kept changing. Usually, the same person was always there, but recently, a different person was standing there every day. This also meant something abnormal. The strangest thing was my mother's clothes. Usually, my mother wore a black or navy blue suit, but for the past week, she had been wearing gray clothes. In North Korea, gray is a color that means mourning or reflection. At that moment, I was sure that they were targeting our house in Pyongyang. I realized that my mother had already become a target of purge, and that the reason for calling me back was to destroy evidence. In North Korea, when high-ranking officials are purged, their families are also eliminated. It is the way of the Kim dynasty that 3 generations disappear together. It was the same during the Yan'an faction purge in the 1950s, the Sixth Corps incident in the 1990s, and the execution of Jiang Sung-taek in 2013. Not only the individual, but also the entire family disappeared. I couldn't sleep that night. I knew for certain that both my mother and I would be in danger if we returned to Pyongyang. At 4 a.m., looking out the dormitory window, I finally made up my mind. I would defect. I couldn't save my mother, but I thought I had to at least survive. I believed that someday I could tell the world about my mother's story. The next day, Wednesday, October 11th, I made an important decision. I decided to find someone to help me defect. There was a Korean community in Vladivostok. Among them, Korean restaurants in Chinatown were known to secretly help defectors. I went to Pyongyang restaurant in Vladivostok's Chinatown. The owner, Mr. Kim Chul-ho, was famous for helping defectors. Mr. Kim Chul-ho was a Korean in his early 60s. He said he had helped many defectors during the North Korean famine in the 1990s. Why did you suddenly think of that? I honestly told him about my situation, that my mother was an announcer for Korean Central Television, that her screen time had recently decreased sharply, and that the consulate was urgently urging her to return home. Mr. Kim Chul-ho's expression turned serious. Ah, so you're in real danger? There's a rumor that Kim Jong-un is currently purging the propaganda and agitation department. He thought for a moment and then said something shocking. These days, if you go through China, you'll get caught 100%. The North Korean security agency has completely blocked the Chinese border. They're cooperating with the Chinese police to repatriate defectors immediately. I was shocked. I didn't know that the defection route was so blocked. Then what should I do? You have to go a long way around. You have to go through South America or Southeast Asia to have a chance of survival. It will take a long time, but that's the only way. According to Mr. Kim Chul-ho's explanation, surveillance on the China-North Korea border had been extremely tightened in recent years. Chairman Kim Jong-un was using all means to completely prevent defection. Your case is more dangerous. You're from a high-ranking family, so the tracking will be more severe. You'll be under a completely different level of surveillance than ordinary defectors. That afternoon, I tried to contact my mother one last time. I decided to call her house in Pyongyang. Usually, international calls to North Korea don't connect. But sometimes, if you're lucky, they do. Alone in my dormitory room, I held my phone and pressed the number with a trembling heart. The dial tone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. On the 8th ring, the call miraculously connected. Hello? It was my mother's voice, but it was completely different from usual. It was a weak and trembling voice. Mom, it's me, Jinguk. There was a brief silence. Then my mother spoke in a small voice. Ah, Jinguk. Mom, are you okay? The consulate said you were sick. Jinguk, I'm fine. How are you doing? My mother's voice was shaking badly. It was as if someone was watching her from the side. Mom, is someone with you right now? No, no one. Jinguk, you can take a long detour. Don't ever hurry. Take your time. Come back. The moment I heard those words, I understood everything. Don't come to Pyongyang right away. Survive first. My mother knew I was in danger and was trying to save me. Mom, Jinguk, I'm fine. Just you. Just you. Please. My mother's voice was choking up. Jinguk, it's okay to be far away. As long as you're alive. That's enough. The call suddenly cut off. I cried on the spot. I knew it would be my last call with my mother. And I also understood my mother's real message. Take a long detour meant to defect, and don't hurry meant to take a safe route. My mother knew she was in a dangerous situation, but she wanted to save me. That night, I cried alone and made up my mind. Mom, I'll go first, and someday I'll tell the world about your story. I'll definitely see you again. The next day, Thursday, October 12th, I met Mr. Kim Chul-ho again to start making a defection plan. Are you sure about this? Yes, I'm sure. Mr. Kim Chul-ho looked at me closely and nodded. Then I'll connect you with a reliable broker. But the cost won't be cheap. That afternoon, I met the broker at a cafe on the outskirts of Vladivostok. He was a 40-year-old Chinese-Russian man named Wang Ming. Wang Ming put on a serious face as soon as he saw me. Kim Chulho gave me a rough explanation of your situation, but it's a really tricky case. Why is that? Your case is special. You're from a high-ranking North Korean family, so the tracking will be severe. Plus, hasn't the consulate already issued a return order for you? They'll come looking for you within a few days. Wang Ming unfolded a map and started explaining. Usually, defectors go through China or Mongolia to Southeast Asia, but those routes have already been figured out by the North Korean Security Agency. In your case, you have to go through an unexpected route. The route Wang Ming proposed was truly extraordinary. Take a train through the Russian interior to Moscow, then to Almaty in Kazakhstan, Tashkent in Uzbekistan, Istanbul in Turkey, Lima in Peru, Sao Paulo in Brazil, and finally Sydney in Australia. Why do I have to go this way? The routes through China or Mongolia have already been blocked by the North Korean Security Agency. The Southeast Asian route is the same. The South American and Australian routes are still uncharted. It's the hardest route to track. According to Wang Ming's explanation, most defection routes had been blocked in recent years. Chairman Kim Jong-un had increased the repatriation of defectors by applying international pressure. Especially in your case, you have to be extra careful. There's a high possibility that North Korea will issue an international wanted order for you. The cost was 150,000 Russian rubles, about 2 million Korean won. That was the amount of money I had saved up while studying abroad in Russia. When can you leave? Tomorrow night. The day after tomorrow, they will come looking for you at the consulate. I handed over all my money to Wang Ming. There was no turning back now. The next day, October 13th, Friday, at 11 p.m., an 18-day hellish journey began at the Vladivostok train station. The first leg 7 days on the Trans-Siberian Railway from Vladivostok to Moscow. There were no major issues on this segment. Since it was a domestic Russian journey, there were no special inspections. However, the first crisis came when crossing the Kazakhstan border from Moscow. I almost got caught at the Kazakhstan border checkpoint because of my North Korean passport. What is this passport? The Kazakhstan guards looked suspicious when they saw my North Korean passport. That's when Wang Ming handed over the fake Chinese passport he had prepared in advance. I'm sorry. I mistakenly handed over the wrong passport. Fortunately, I was able to pass through with the fake Chinese passport, but I broke out in a cold sweat. There was also a problem on the segment from Almaty to Tashkent. Uzbekistan police conducted a bag check and discovered North Korean money. What is this? It's a souvenir. I bought it at a tourist spot. Fortunately, they let me go, thinking the North Korean currency was a tourist souvenir. There was an even bigger crisis in Istanbul, Turkey. Rumors spread that the broker had been arrested. I had to hide in a mosque in Istanbul for 3 days. I couldn't eat properly or sleep well. After 3 days, a new broker appeared. He was a Turkish Syrian who said he would take me to Peru. From Istanbul to Lima, Peru, it was a 15-hour flight. I used a fake Turkish passport and fortunately passed through without any issues. Another danger awaited me in Peru. I got caught at the airport during a fake travel document inspection. What is the purpose of your trip? Tourism. Where do you plan to tour? Machu Picchu. Not knowing any Spanish, I only gave the answers the broker had told me in advance. Fortunately, I was able to pass through by giving a bribe. It took 2 days by bus from Lima to the Brazilian border. But I got lost in the Brazilian jungle and wandered for another 2 days. I thought I was going to die because I ran out of water and food. I barely survived by drinking tree sap and eating fruit. The final leg from Brazil to Australia was the hardest. I had to hide in a cargo ship container and cross the ocean for a week. I was alone in the container. All I had was 10 packs of instant noodles and 2 liters of water. I had to endure by eating half a pack of noodles a day. I felt extremely seasick every time the ship rocked, and the container was so hot I felt like I couldn't breathe. I really thought about dying several times. And finally, on October 31st, 2023, I arrived at the port of Sydney, Australia. The 18-day hellish journey was over. As soon as I got out of the container, my knees buckled. My body was completely worn out from not being able to stand or eat properly for 18 days. But the joy of being alive was greater. It was truly a miraculous event. I immediately went to the Sydney UNHCR Temporary Protection Center and applied for refugee status. I am from North Korea. I am applying for political asylum. That night, an emergency news report came out in the local Australian media. The son of a North Korean Central TV anchor has been found in Australia. The news of my defection was covered as top news by major media outlets around the world. CNN, BBC, NHK? All the media reported my story. The South Korean National Intelligence Service also contacted me immediately. They said I had to come to South Korea. After spending a week at the Australian Refugee Center, 2 agents from the South Korean National Intelligence Service came to find me. Mr. Choi Jin-guk, we are from the South Korean National Intelligence Service. You need to go to South Korea. They were Section Chief Park Do-yoon and Team Leader Kim Sung-min. Both appeared to be in their mid-40s and introduced themselves as North Korea experts. The defection of a high-ranking North Korean family is a very important matter. You can be safely protected in South Korea. According to Section Chief Park Do-yoon's explanation, my defection had become a major international issue. He said that the defection of the family of a North Korean Central TV announcer was almost unprecedented. It's dangerous for you to stay in Australia. There is a high possibility that North Korean agents are already moving. I had no choice. They said I could be threatened by North Korean agents, even in Australia. The South Korean government promises the highest level of protection. Your safety is the top priority. 3 days later, on November 10th, I arrived at Incheon Airport on a private charter plane. The airport was completely closed off to the media. No one knew about my entry. I immediately got into a black sedan at the airport and was taken to a National Intelligence Service protection facility. It was a place called Garimbong. Garimbong was located in a secluded area on the outskirts of Seoul. It was a 4-story building surrounded by a high wall and looked like a regular training institute from the outside. But the inside was completely different. CCTV cameras were installed everywhere, and security guards were on duty 24 hours a day. The room I was assigned to was a small single room on the 3rd floor. It had a bed, a desk, and a simple sink, but it was clean and safe. The next day, a full-scale investigation began. It continued for 3 weeks, 8 hours a day. The interrogation room was on the 2nd floor. It was a simple space with a small table and a few chairs, but it had recording equipment and CCTV cameras installed. Section Chief Park Do-yoon mainly asked the questions. What were the exact last words of your mother, Choi Myung-hwa? How much did you know about the internal situation of the North Korean Propaganda and Agitation Department? Were there any other high-ranking family members planning to defect? Who met you at the Russian consulate? The questions were very specific. They asked me in detail about everything I remembered. In particular, they repeatedly asked about the content of my mother's last broadcast. Was there anything different about your mother's broadcast? Were there any codes or signals? Did you notice anything strange about the studio background or other people? I honestly told them everything I had observed. My mother's trembling voice, the changed studio background, the gray clothes, etc. Section Chief Park Do-yoon continued to take notes as he listened to me. Such details are very important in understanding the situation inside North Korea. In the 2nd week of the investigation, Section Chief Park Do-yoon said something shocking. Your mother, Choi Myung-hwa, hasn't appeared on the broadcast for the past month. She has completely disappeared. Hearing those words, I felt like my heart was breaking. Maybe your mother. I don't know the exact situation yet, but it's certain that she has been completely excluded from the Propaganda and Agitation Department. Section Chief Park Do-yoon continued cautiously. It seems like your mother held on until the end to send you away. She's really amazing. She tried to save her son, even though she knew the danger she was in. I cried on the spot. The thought that my mother might be suffering more because of me felt like my heart would break. Is it because I defected that my mother is in more danger? No. Your mother would have been targeted anyway. Your defection is just a result, not the cause. Team leader Kim Seong-min also offered words of comfort. Your mother's decision to send you away was a wise one. If you had stayed in Pyongyang, both of you would have been in danger. After 3 weeks of investigation, the National Intelligence Service classified me as a Grade 1 protected individual. It meant I was one of the most wanted people in North Korea. You will be fully protected for the time being. The threat from North Korean agents may continue. Section Chief Park Do-yoon's last words were impressive. Your mother lived for the nation for 50 years, but in the end, she risked everything for her son. Don't let that love go to waste. After the NIS investigation, I entered Hanawon. The official name was the North Korean Defectors Settlement Support Office. Hanawon was located in Anseong, Gyeonggi-do. It had a large site with several buildings, giving it a college campus feel. My emotions were complex when I first passed through the main gate of Hanawon. Relief and fear came rushing in at the same time. I thought I was truly severing ties with North Korea. On my first day, my assigned counselor, teacher Lee Mi-gayong, welcomed me. Jin-guk, please feel comfortable here. This is a place to prepare for a new beginning. The room I was assigned to was a double room. My roommate was Brother Park Seong-cheol from Cheongjin, North Hamgyong Province. He was 36 years old, 2 years older than me. Huh. Are you the son of that famous announcer? Brother Park Seong-cheol said he had already heard about me. He said my story had become a topic of discussion, even within Hanawon. Don't worry. Everyone here is in the same situation. The past doesn't matter. The first shock I received at Hanawon was the cafeteria. Buffet-style meals? It was something unimaginable in North Korea. I could freely choose what I wanted to eat, and as much as I wanted. During my first meal, I hesitated in front of the food for 30 minutes. I didn't know what to eat. In North Korea, I had to eat only what was given, but here, the range of choices was too wide. There were over 10 types of rice, soup, and side dishes. Kimchi stew, soybean paste stew, seaweed soup, bean sprout soup. There were even fruits and yogurt for dessert. Brother Park Seong-cheol laughed and helped me. Everyone is like that at first. I only ate the same food every day for the first month. When there are too many choices, it actually becomes harder. Shower time was also free. In North Korea, water usage time was limited. I could only shower for about 10 minutes a day, 3 times a week. But here, I could shower with hot water as much as I wanted. I showered for an hour the first time in the Hanawon shower room. It felt like all the fatigue and stress I had accumulated was washed away. The most shocking thing was the internet. Google, YouTube, KakaoTalk. I didn't even know such things existed. At Hanawon, defectors were given computer education. I had experience using computers in Russia, but the internet world in South Korea was completely different. I can't forget the shock I felt when I first watched a Korean drama on YouTube. There were free contents that were unimaginable in North Korea. Love, freedom, individual dreams. It was amazing to see these topics being naturally addressed. KakaoTalk was also a new world. Seeing people freely chatting, exchanging photos, and expressing emotions made me realize what true freedom was. At Hanawon, I met various people. Sister Kim Yong-hwae from South Pyongyang Province, Brother Lee Cheol-soo from Hwanghae Province, and Sister Park Mi-sun from Ryanggang Province. They all defected for different reasons but understood and helped each other. Sister Kim Yong-hwae defected alone after her husband was taken to a political prison camp. She said she crossed the Chinese border with her 2-year-old child. At first I hesitated because of the child, but I thought I couldn't save the child if I stayed in North Korea. Brother Lee Cheol-soo defected after getting caught up in a bribery issue while doing business at the Jangmadang North Korean black market. Kim Jong-un cracked down on the Jangmadang and arrested merchants indiscriminately. I had no choice but to come out to survive. Sister Park Mi-sun lived in hiding in China for 10 years before coming to South Korea. In China, I lived in constant fear of being caught. It was only when I came to South Korea that I felt truly safe. Everyone had their own painful story, but they comforted and helped each other, finding new hope. Hanawon had various educational programs: Korean language education, computer education, vocational education, and social adaptation education. Korean language education was the most difficult. Although it was the same language, the words used in North Korea and South Korea were very different. In North Korea, we said dongmu, comrade, but in South Korea, we had to say 친구, friend, or atsi, Mr. Ms. We also couldn't use expressions like suryoungnim, dear leader, or jangunim, general. At first, I was cautious every time I spoke. North Korean expressions kept coming out. Dongmu, no, friend. Suryong, no, president. I had to change my words like this. Computer education was fun. I learned programs like Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, and understood the business methods in South Korean society. In vocational education, I experienced various occupations: manufacturing, service, and transportation. I became interested in the transportation industry. Jobs like taxi or bus driver. Jin-guk, you seem to have a calm personality and are good at communicating with people. The transportation industry seems like a good fit for you. The career counselor advised me. There was also a psychological counseling session. I had a one-on-one meeting with a professional counselor once a week. Jin-guk, how are you feeling these days? I'm fine, but sometimes I think about my mother. Do you worry a lot about your mother? I spoke honestly for the first time during a psychological counseling session. Pyongyang was scary. I always felt like I was being watched since I was a child. I had to be careful at school, at home, and everywhere. How hard it must have been to grow up in such an environment. It's okay now. No one is watching you here. Counselor Kim Hye-jin spoke warmly. It's okay to express your feelings honestly. Don't be afraid. Hearing those words, I cried for the first time. In North Korea, I was taught not to cry. Crying was considered a sign of weakness, so I forced myself to hold back. But here, crying was also a freedom. The director of Hana Center also gave me an impressive piece of advice. Once a month, there was a meeting time with all the students. Everyone, this is a place where you decide your own life. No one will stop your mouth, and no one will limit your dreams. Find what you want to do. Those words deeply resonated with me. I didn't know that finding what I wanted to do was such a precious thing. The 3 months at Hana Center showed me a new world. I truly realized what freedom meant for the first time. Freedom wasn't just about not being watched. Being able to choose, being able to dream, and being able to express one's feelings was true freedom. After completing Hana Center in March 2024, I started a new life in Seoul. The temporary residence provided by the government was a small studio apartment in Gurogu. It was a space of less than 6 pyong, but it was the first real home I had. At first, living alone was awkward. In North Korea, I always lived with someone. Whether it was a dormitory or a house, I hardly had any alone time. But in the studio apartment in Seoul, I was completely alone. No one watched me, and no one restricted my actions. I felt true freedom, but also a sense of loneliness. My first job was at a large mart logistics center in Gurogu. It was a job introduced by Hana Center. I worked from 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. It involved carrying heavy boxes, organizing products, and loading goods onto trucks. It was physically demanding, but I didn't complain. I didn't know how precious it was to earn a living with my own feet. I will never forget the day I received my first paycheck. It was 1.3 million won, and I cried profusely upon receiving it. It was a large sum of money unimaginable in North Korea. Now I can truly become self-sufficient. Thinking that, my heart felt full. While working at the logistics center for 6 months, I gradually adapted to Korean society. My colleagues were initially cautious, knowing I was a North Korean defector, but over time they became more comfortable. Jin-guk, you are really diligent. Are all North Koreans as diligent as you? You do your work very meticulously. We should learn from you. Receiving recognition from my colleagues boosted my confidence. After 6 months, I started a delivery job. It involved riding a motorcycle and going all around Seoul. At first I got lost because I didn't know the geography of Seoul, Gangnam, Gangbuk, Hongdae, Myeongdong. I had no idea where these places were just by hearing their names. But while doing delivery work, I got to know every corner of Seoul. I visited wealthy neighborhoods and ordinary neighborhoods, seeing the diverse aspects of Korean society. The people I met while delivering were also diverse. College students, office workers, housewives, elderly people. Everyone was living their own lives. One elderly man lived alone and ordered jjajangmyeon from a Chinese restaurant every day. "Son, you came from North Korea? You must have gone through a lot. Keep going." Every time I heard such warm words, my heart felt warm. One college student ordered chicken late at night from his dormitory while studying. "Young, study hard." "Thank you. You keep going too." It was strange to have such natural conversations. In North Korea, you couldn't speak so comfortably to strangers. After doing delivery work for about a year, I fully adapted to life in Seoul, and I wanted to find a more stable job. I heard that Park Seong-cheol, a fellow Hana Center graduate, got a taxi license. Jinguk, try being a taxi driver. Defectors can also get a license. I've been doing it for 6 months, and it's fine. It was strange that defectors could get a taxi license. It was something unimaginable in North Korea. In December 2024, I got a personal taxi license. It took 3 months to prepare for the exam, but the joy of passing was indescribable. Choi Jin-guk passed, tears welled up the moment I saw the passing announcement. It was something I couldn't even dream of in North Korea. I started working as a taxi driver from January this year. At first, I often apologized to passengers because I didn't know the roads well. "Driver, do you know the way?" "I'm sorry. I'll follow the navigation." "It's okay. Take your time." I was often moved by the generosity of Korean people. Most of the passengers I met while working as a taxi driver were in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. There were many people around my mother's age. One day, a man in his 60s said this driver, "Haven't you seen that female announcer on North Korean news lately? Choi Myung-hwa, I think. She used to appear for a long time." At that moment, my whole body froze. I knew he was talking about my mother. I gripped the steering wheel tightly and couldn't respond. No words came out. I also saw the news that her son defected. "That's too bad. I wonder what happened to his mother." I finally managed to respond. "That's right. I don't know." That night, when I returned home, I turned on an app I hadn't used in a long time. It was a satellite app I used in Australia, an app that allowed me to watch North Korean broadcasts. I spent an hour flipping through channels looking for my mother, but my mother was nowhere to be seen. A new female announcer was reading the main news. She was a young woman who looked to be in her early 20s. In the place where my mother had stood for 50 years, there was a completely different person. I kept looking for over an hour. I thought maybe my mother would appear at a different time. Then a miracle happened. Around 11:30 p.m. at the end of the news about Kim Jong-un's activities, my mother's face appeared. It was only for 20 seconds, but it was definitely her. She had lost a lot of weight. Her face was gaunt, and there were more wrinkles around her eyes. Her voice wasn't the same as before. It was weak and trembling. My mother read a very short news piece. It was about agriculture, a low-priority news item. It was completely different from the main news my mother used to read. At the end of those 20 seconds, my mother's words pierced my heart. "To all comrades far away, be healthy." This wasn't a typical broadcast phrase. It was a personal message. I immediately knew she was speaking to me. I burst into tears right there. "Mother, I'm here. I'm alive. I'm healthy," I muttered while looking at the smartphone screen. I replayed those 20 seconds multiple times, closely observing my mother's appearance. She was wearing gray clothes and heavy makeup. It seemed like she was trying to hide something, but her eyes were still warm. Even though she had lived for the nation for 50 years, I felt her love, sacrificing everything for her son in the end. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mother's 20 seconds kept replaying in my mind. I spent the night thinking, will I ever meet her again? Now, I live quietly as a taxi driver in Seoul. I wake up every morning at 6 a.m., drive my taxi around Seoul. I pick up passengers, talk to them, and come home late at night to eat dinner alone. It's an ordinary routine, but each day feels like a miracle to me. It's a free life I could never have dreamed of in North Korea. While driving my taxi, I often think about my 18-day escape journey. It started in Russia, through Central Asia, Turkey, South America, and Australia. It was a truly miraculous journey. I was able to travel that long distance alone because of my mother's last message. It's okay to take a long journey back. My mother wanted me to live safely, and I followed her wish. Even now, I sometimes watch that 20-second video to not forget my mother's last appearance. To all comrades far away, be healthy. Every time I hear those words, my heart fills with warmth. I know my mother is worried about me. Sometimes, passengers talk about North Korea. Driver, when will North Korea change? How long will Kim Jong-un continue? When will unification happen? I always answer cautiously, I don't know, but I believe it will change someday. I truly believe that. I believe that someday North Korea will change, and the day will come when I meet my mother again. Until then, I will live healthily and proudly here, cherishing the freedom my mother protected with her life. I also meet up with colleagues from Hana Center occasionally. Brother Park Seong-cheol is a taxi driver in Incheon. Sister Kim Yong-hwae runs a restaurant in Gyeonggi-do. Everyone is working hard in their own place. They are nurturing new dreams, overcoming the painful memories of North Korea. Jin-guk, we seem to be living really well. Brother Park Seong-cheol said this one day. That's right, brother. We're all doing well. I really think so too. We all made a brave choice, and as a result, we gained freedom. My mother must feel the same way as me. You will be happy to know that your son is living freely. Sometimes I dream. I dream of meeting my mother again. In my dreams, my mother looks just like she used to. She appears as the proud announcer who led North Korean broadcasts for 50 years. Jin-guk, you did well. You did really well. My mother says this while hugging me. It's all thanks to you, Mother, because you showed me the way. We always have this conversation in my dreams. Every time I wake up from a dream, I feel disappointed by reality. But I believe that someday my dream will become a reality. Let's meet again someday. When North Korea changes, I murmur this every night. I think about it even as I drive a taxi through the streets of Seoul. I think about my mother, who stood in front of a microphone in Pyongyang, North Korea, for 50 years. My mother sacrificed everything to save me. 50 years of career, the nation's honor, even her own safety. Her screen time reduced from 28 seconds to 20 seconds. But the love of my mother contained in those 20 seconds will be eternal. Neither Chairman Kim Jong-un nor the North Korean regime could stop my mother's love. That love saved me and continues to protect me. Today, I still hold the steering wheel and drive through the streets of Seoul, freely, proudly, cherishing the second life my mother gave me. I safely transport my passengers, earn money honestly, and end my day healthily. This ordinary routine is the best gift for me. The 20 seconds left by announcer Choi Myung-hwa. My mother's last resistance contained within those 20 seconds saved her son's life. And even now, I wait for the era of 3 minutes again in my heart. Until the day I meet my mother again, in the Pyongyang studio. Until that day comes, I will live here, in this free land, remembering my mother's love. Every night, I watch my mother's 20 seconds and make a promise. Mother, I'm still here. I'm living healthily and freely. I won't let your love be in vain. I think that's the best way I can show filial piety. Even at this moment, Mr. Choi Jin-guk is holding the steering wheel of a taxi somewhere in Seoul, cherishing the freedom that his mother, Ms. Choi Myung-hwa, protected with her life from 3 minutes to 28 seconds, and finally to the last 20 seconds. Even within the brutal reality of North Korea measured by screen time, maternal love could not be stopped by anyone. A woman who lived as the voice of the nation for 50 years chose her son over the regime in her final moments. That choice created an 18-day miracle and continues to live and breathe as hope within a young man's heart. I earnestly hope that true freedom will one day come to North Korea, and that the day when mother and son meet again will arrive. Until that day, I pray that Mr. Choi Jin-guk's new life continues, and that his mother's love is not in vain. If you have listened to the story until the end, please leave a comment saying, "You have listened well." Thank you.